One of the basic skills that you need to learn when drawing is how to break objects down into their basic shapes. You'll notice this bowl is actually a circle or a sphere that's cut in half. And I just use some ellipses here to draw the top edge of the bowl, as well as the bottom where the bowl rests on the ground. So we'll apply this to drawing our own bowl. You draw a simple circle, an ellipse in the center, and then we'll draw an ellipse across the bottom. And if you want to draw grooves or lines on the bowl, it's pretty simple at this point to just see where the ellipse should cut across the shape. And then once you've kind of got the form, you can simply erase the lines that you no longer need and darken up the lines that you do. And so you'll be left with a decent little bowl drawing. And of course, you can continue to do a little bit of shading if you want, and I'll do that in each little example here, but I won't go too far in depth into any shading or anything like that. Next, we're going to draw a lamp, and I draw a center vertical line to give me a guide. And we'll draw a tapered cylinder here, and this is the lampshade, and I'll draw a circle to show the spherical base of the lamp. So this is kind of similar to a bowl, but I'm not cutting anything off. And it's pretty simple, actually, probably easier than a bowl. And once I finish darkening in these lines here, I'm going to do a quick example of drawing a cast shadow from this object. And I'm going to use similar shapes, an ellipse and kind of a trapezoid shape to draw the cast shadow from this object. Okay, so next let's do something that's maybe a little bit more cool, like a gun. I don't know, guns are just whatever. But we'll still break something like a gun down into basic shapes. So you'll see here we're drawing kind of a flattened cube or box. And that's going to be kind of the body of the gun. And the cylinder here, this will be a 6-shooter. So we'll draw a little cylinder. I don't know what this is called. Probably the bullet cylinder. And another cylinder again for the barrel of the gun. And, you know, guns are easy because they actually do break down into simple shapes because they're kind of machined that way, but so it makes it a good little project. The handle, a little bit different, but we'll just draw kind of a box-like shape and, you know, add a little bit of dimension like a cube, some little lines for the trigger, and again for the hammer. And so, you know, we've got just some basic shapes, and once you're kind of happy with those, then you can start drawing in. And what we're really looking for here when we're drawing with shapes is the relationships between shapes and sizes. So in the case of this gun, is the barrel long enough? Is it wide enough? Does it need to be smaller? Once you're happy with those proportions, you can go in and draw the details. What happens with a lot of amateur artists is they just start drawing the details to begin with. And you end up with something that doesn't look proportionate, especially when you get to complex organic shapes like humans. And so by breaking it down to the shape, basic shapes, you're going to come out with a much more accurate drawing. And so next we'll actually do a little head, and then I'll kind of show you some of the basics of how I draw a human or more of a comic book figure. But again, starting with the principles of drawing with basic shapes. So let's look at the head. I usually draw a sphere, a circle, divided in half. The chin, you could draw a box, you could make it round. I like to just kind of draw out how the chin might be. The ears, again, are kind of little rectangles sticking out the side of the head. I don't normally draw circles for the eyes, but the eyes are circles, and you've got the eye sockets, and so you can kind of see where you need to draw eyelids. And so once you've got those basic guidelines in place, you can start drawing in some hard, dark lines. So you'll notice this is the same process, even if it's you know, an airplane, a car, no matter what you're drawing, you're going to want to start with some basic lines, and those are usually going to be basic shapes. This way you end up with proportions that look correct, and you don't get halfway through the drawing and realize your proportions are off because you've already drawn the basic shapes, and now you're just kind of drawing on top of it. This guy is kind of dorky. Okay, so let's draw the figure. I'm not going to draw a full body, but you see I've drawn an ellipse here for my head, and I've got some lines for shoulder. I tend to draw the torso as kind of a circle, and then I always like to draw center lines so I know where the center of things are, and kind of cut a half circle out of that bigger circle, and that's where the rib cage is gonna be. And so, as I'm drawing a figure, I go through and I do some of these basic shapes. I've been drawing for a while, so obviously I can go in and draw shapes that I know aren't there, but you'll notice for the arms, I'm going to draw cylinders. That's the basic building block of an arm. It's just a cylinder. For the hands, you tend to start with a circle or a box, and then you can kind of go and add more detail from there. And I'm not going to go through the full drawing of this character. If you want to see me draw a character, you'll have to get one of my later videos. But I'm going to go ahead and start drawing in some detail and kind of fleshing this out. And so I hope that what you've learned is that when drawing anything, you should start with the basic shapes. Make sure your proportions are correct before you go on and try and do a finished drawing. I think if you just start with the details, you're going to end up frustrated and things aren't going to work out right. When you start basic, it allows you to kind of see where you're going, correct any big proportional errors before you go in. And it's going to just make the project a lot easier, and you'll be a lot more pleased with your final result. So go ahead and finish watching this little guy, and I'll see you next time.